Pete Diamond here in Jacksonville, Florida. This is a update on the Dewalt battery Field King sprayer conversion. So I put 50 gallons of chemical through it over the last couple of days, and I discovered a couple of problems with the pump. So first problem was I noticed that the pump would pulse. And then the other issue that I had was sometimes it would leave a half gallon of chemical in the tank and the pump would just run and run and run and it wouldn't pull it out. So what I decided to do was go full caveman, and I pulled everything out of the inside. So I'll show you what those parts are now. So this is part of their no leak pump system. So this is like a air pressure tank, and the problem I was having is this backpack sprayer, like all pressure sprayers, is designed to run by filling the tank with air pressure, and then that pressure is what evacuates the chemical. And so by changing the dynamics to a gravity fed pump, it meant that there was no positive pressure in the tank that was pushing the solution through this contraption here. So what I did was I hacksawed off the bottom, because that is threaded on. So all it is a male thread with a flange and a couple of rubber washers down there in the bottom of the tank now. So that also meant that I was able to remove the rod. So this means I can change the orientation of the battery. So I'm actually going to change the battery to sit like this. If I was starting over again, this whole assembly has actually got a bolt on each side and a rod that goes through it, and you could actually remove this entire grey piece here, which would give you a whole lot more space. You could put the electronics box and the pump in any orientation that you wanted to. So pretty straightforward removal process. Let me see where I'm at here. So this piece here is attached under here, and it has two nuts and bolts that go through the rod, and this rod was inserted in here, right? So there's two bolts and that piece is bolted onto it. So you can undo those bolts, and the head of the bolts is actually an Allen hex head, so you can then back the bolt all the way out, and then that rod will just slide completely out. I also removed two screws here, two on the other side and two at the bottom. So this whole back panel comes off because this rod assembly is actually behind this grey plastic, and this rod assembly is what goes up and down when you pump the manual pump, and it pushes this piston up and down, right? So that there is held on. It comes up through a hole in the tank here with a rubber washer on it, and that is inserted into there and held in place with an R-clip. So you undo the R-clip, take off this grey plastic, undo the bolts down here, take that rod out, and then all of this comes out. And then this pressure tank is held on with a locking tab, so you just twist it and it'll come off. So you do that first, and then you can unthread the hose from the bottom and pull this contraption out. So that was the issue I was having. It wouldn't pump out all of the product, and then I guess because of the way that the solution, the chemical, was having to work its way through this manual pump system, it would cause this pump to pulsate, and the pump was working way harder than it needed to. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. The other thing I wanted to point out is the reason I like this Field King, and actually on Tractor Supply right now they've got it's marketed as a Roundup sprayer, but it's the exact same unit, it's just got a Roundup label stuck on here. It's for sale on there for 60 bucks, but it has this professional nozzle setup, and the reason you want to get a pump up sprayer with that is because, if it'll focus, these T-jet nozzles, you can swap those out, and they have different fan patterns, different flow rates. So this is an 11006, and using this nozzle with this pump, I was able to pump out 32 ounces in about 22 seconds. So half a gallon in 45 seconds, and you can do the math from there. And that turned out to be perfect, because at a good steady walking speed, at 1 gallon 1,000 square feet, this pump puts out the chemical at the right rate. So I suspect, now that I've removed that pressure tank, that the volume of this tank has actually increased. So I'm not sure if the measuring lines for the increments is accurate, or whether it's going to be like a quarter of a gallon off. But anyway, just wanted to share that update. Other than that, it works absolutely great, and so I am going to relocate the battery just to go in there sideways. And just so you know, this battery was fully charged when I started, and it's still got 2 bars, and that's after 50 gallons, 48 actually. So anyway, that's where I'm at with the update. If I was going to start over from scratch, I would remove all of this pump stuff before I pot riveted that base plate in, and I would get this out of the way. I'd have to take the box off and the pump off to remove that, and there's just no point right now. But if I was going to do another one from scratch, I would remove all this stuff before I put the plate on and before I install any of that, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's the update. I will check back when I've moved the battery, and I've actually got a buddy of mine is wanting me to do one for him, so I'll be posting a video of the exact same setup on a slightly different backpack sprayer. Okay, so I relocated the Power Wheels battery adapter, and just to recap the pieces that I took out, so this is what it looks like assembled inside the tank, right? So all of this part is inside, that's where I hacksawed the bottom off, and then this is the rod assembly that goes in right here. So now all that's left to do is I'm going to put 1 gallon of water in and see if by removing that air tank we've changed the volume of the tank. I just want to check that a 1 gallon line is still my 1 gallon line, so let me do that. And it pretty much has. So this is the fill line, and that was the old 2-gallon line. At 1 gallon didn't make much difference, but that pressure tank was sitting kind of at this angle, so I suspect the more you fill this to the 4-gallon capacity, the further off that is going to be, but it's pretty significant difference. So I'm going to have to remark my fill lines to make sure that I'm filling this accurately. So let me see what 3 and 4 gallons look like. So mark the line. So this was the 3-gallon line, which as you can see is a fair bit lower than the original line. This now is 4 gallons, which is pretty significantly lower than what the old 4-gallon fill line used to be. So I'm going to put a tape line on that. So probably the capacity now is probably 4.5 gallons if you wanted to fill this all the way to the top, but 4 gallons is heavy enough for me, so I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so I've got the increments marked. I did some black tape on there. Finally, you may have seen this earlier, but so that black rubber gasket is what seals the tank from the piston rod that goes up and down this rod here. So I put a nut and bolt in it, but that brings me to the last situation that I was finding with this pump up sprayer, and that is when you start off with a full tank and you pump it down, you end up with a vacuum in this tank here, and again the pump will work harder than it needs to because it's pulling against a vacuum. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take that nut and bolt out, if we can see inside. You can barely see the bolt head right there, but I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put in a one-way check valve. It's not really a big deal. I mean, you just have to stop and loosen the tank lid to relieve the pressure, or once you're done, you know, shaking the backpack up to mix whatever you got in there, get that mixed up properly, you can just loosen the lid while you're spraying. Just be mindful that if it does slop around, it's going to leak. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is put a one-way check valve right in that hole there, and then hopefully when the tank gets vacuum, it'll pull the check valve open. So that said, let's give it a whirl. Ooh, with the battery in the new orientation. Yep. Kick this on. There we go. Now it's primed up. Runs great. No more hunting. That's what the pump was doing before. It would go brr, brr, brr. Now it's just running straight and smooth. Perfect. So I just pumped out 2 gallons. So let's see if the tank is under vacuum. I don't know if you heard that, but it was. So I'm going to go ahead and make that modification right now and show you that real quick. So that's a little one-way check valve installed. It just pushed right in. So maybe that will help. I'm going to test it, pump out the rest of this water, see if the tank stays vacuum free. It's a moment of truth. No vacuum. And it pumped it all the way down. There's just a little puddle in the bottom. Perfect. So there we go. That concludes the video on converting this sprayer. Like I said, I've got a buddy of mine bringing me one of his, and I'm going to be converting that one, so I'll probably make a video, because I think his has a different pump mechanism, because it's a Home Depot roundup version. Anyway, thanks for watching.